Well, we're back. I myself visited the petting zoo. I had hoped that there might be a monkey, but there wasn't. But
you may want to explain that to our remote audience.
well, no, we'll let the remote audience guess. We've set up quite an elaborate system here this morning for IEEE because we like to keep the members entertained. So we have pony rides and a petting zoo and a little gym right outside our window here. But welcome back. We have two sections here. I've combined them in the slides that were distributed here on site simply for economy, and we'll give you a point where we will break for the two topics. I'm Hank Lindborg, and I'm chair of the CWPC committee, and I'm pleased to be here this morning for this event. And at the beginning, we asked you if you had a network, and some of you didn't raise your hands. And the fact that you're here this morning suggests that you do indeed have a very important network, one of the best ones I know among professional associations, and we're going to hear more about that during lunch. So, career strategy. Thinking about being strategic, the word strategy comes from the Greek word for general. And so you have to take your job search on as a kind of a campaign and to organize it as such, to think about it as such, and Ed has prepared us extraordinarily well, I think, in his presentation for that. Someone suggested this morning that there are a lot of people unemployed, that many people are apprehensive, that there is a whole lot of change. I have here on this slide the term glacial change, and the picture is of a melting glacier. And in about 30 years, there will be no more glaciers in Glacier National Park. They will all be gone. So the idea of glacial change certainly has changed in its meaning. We're undergoing extraordinarily rapid change, and I have used slides about change and values and technology for the last 25 years or so that have these two columns about where we are now and where we're going to be in the future. And every time I used those, the future seemed quite remote, and it was quite dramatic to talk about those things. We have undergone significant meltdowns before this, as Ed mentioned this morning, the .com. We have had continual workforce churn throughout the 90s, but my sense of change right now is really quite different. And so I think it is massive. It is affecting everyone, and how you approach that change is really extraordinarily significant. When we think about change, we can think about it from the point of view of ourselves and our organizations. And a number of you are indicated that you're looking for work, and a number of you indicated that you are currently employed. If we're looking at change for an organization, for example, we have to look at four areas. We have to look at the internal side of an organization. We have to look at its values, its culture, its core mission, who it is internally, that organization that you know so well. And on the other side is the public face of that organization, which is embodied in policies and procedures and corporate strategies and those kinds of things. The same is true of individuals. On the surface, we have all kinds of roles and responsibilities and job descriptions that are one part of us. And on the other side, we have the internal life, our own values and priorities. If you're going to change an organization, you would have to change all of those four quadrants at once. the internal and the external life of the organization itself, as well as of the people in it. What we're facing now is an extraordinary period of turbulence. Some of you have probably heard the term VUCA, V-U-C-A. How many of you have heard that term? Well, you're going to be hearing more about it. What's the first one? Volatility. We'll add the others a little bit. Well, we'll tell you what they are now. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. For many of us here this morning, the uncertainty part of it is the most significant. That is the pattern that the Army War College has adopted, VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Because in the 1990s, the Army decided that that was the strategic environment in which it had to work, and it had to prepare people to think and act in that kind of environment. The same kind of environment is presently found in the workplace, and we have to prepare ourselves in terms of our careers to face that sort of strategic environment. This is a kind of symbolic picture of work. I live in Wisconsin, and this is a picture of work from the Milwaukee Art Museum, and it's highly symbolic. We don't have time to go through it, but one of the things you'll notice is at the top we have a connection not just with the workplace, but with heaven. That there is some larger kind of world picture here into which work fits. While I was sitting here this morning, I got an email from an old colleague of mine who runs the Tyson Center for Spirituality in the Workplace at the University of Arkansas. And they're having a free conference this week with a lot of the leadership gurus around this idea that there is a deeper meaning in work, that it represents a kind of deeper vocation, and that people don't come to work only with their instrumental skills, but that wherever you have a human being, you have depth, and that side of the human being has to be acknowledged. Now that's wonderful, except that as we undergo stress and we find ourselves unemployed or potentially unemployed, we go back to survival. And under stress, one of the things that I've discovered, not only for myself but for lots of people I've worked with and in the literature, is we lose IQ points. So that when we're dealing with folks like you who are engineers and are used to performing at a high level and used to employing our intellect in a very productive way, under stress we find that those assets are not necessarily so readily available to us. So the sort of thing we've been doing this morning is kind of an exercise to help us prepare and to come up with some things that we can practice and perhaps improve so we can do them more spontaneously. Ed mentioned the elevator speech. I'll tell you a little story, and that is that when we were in Washington, D.C., I was on an elevator with Ed, and I turned to him on a crowded elevator and I said, "So give me your speech, Ed." And he kind of made a face at me, indicating that I shouldn't be speaking that way on a crowded elevator. So the metaphor doesn't always work. But the idea of that speech, of course, is that you have something to say about yourself that's brief and that is effective, and you use the elevator to give yourself a time limit. That's the essence of it, and you need to be prepared for that. Most of us are not. When we've done other kinds of workshops where we've actually asked people to do that, some folks do it spontaneously, beautifully, and others sound like Dilbert. They string together a series of things that you might find on a resume, and it doesn't quite sound real. So as simple as some of these things are, it's a good idea to try to practice them. Let's ask some questions about this and your orientation to work, and I'll ask you by your hands to indicate where you fall in this. There's seven options here for choosing your career management. The first is, I have a calling or a life's work. Second, I look for interesting or meaningful work. Third, I have a profession, not a career path. I have a career path in my organization, number 4, which used to be quite common and is less. I actively manage my career based on my goals, which we're asking you to do today. My career just evolved over time. It just kind of happened. I have to confess that that's my life. It just happened, for better or for worse, it happened. I don't have a career. I just work to pay the bills. Okay? Let me take a little poll here. How many of you have a calling or a life's work? We have one soul. And one person said that, and I noticed by the collar that you're probably associated with a religious organization. Number 2, I look for interesting or meaningful work. A little more than half. I have a profession, not a career path. 4 people. I have a career path in my organization. 1 person whom we all envy. What kind of an organization is it?
My organization?
Yes.
Self-employed.
Oh, you're self-employed, so you would have made your career path. There's a poem by the Spanish poet Antonio Machado that says, "We make the road by walking." So that's...
That's correct. I have an issue and I'm working towards one day having.
Okay, that's... I actively manage my career based on goals. 5 or so more people. My career just evolved over time. Oh, 10, 15 people. This is... I don't have a career, I just work to pay the bills. We have some people here I wouldn't have expected to answer in that way, but we have a few folks who say that. You know, that's important to think about. I don't know if you can read this, and I don't think it showed up too well on the printout. But I got those questions from the consulting firm Blessing White that did a report on this maybe 5 years ago or so when we started doing these workshops, and I think it's fairly telling. Consider yourself to have a calling or life's work, about 6% of the respondents. I look for work that's meaningful or interesting to me, 32%. That's a powerful motivator. I have a profession, not a career path, about 19%. I follow an established career path in my organization, only about 2%. I actively manage my career based on personal career goals, 23%. I don't. It has more or less evolved over time, 17%. And I don't have a career. I work to pay the bills, about 1%. And actually, in a number of instances, that pretty much corresponded to the percentages here. You should think about that, because we're asking you to reframe things. And if some of you don't naturally think in that way, you might want to reframe and at this point take this into account. One thing you can do, another little exercise which we didn't give it to you, but which I found useful in at least talking with people, is just to take a piece of paper, and on the left side, we don't want you to do it now because you wouldn't have time, but on the left side, put some little symbol of your birth, the beginning of your life, maybe your birth date or some other little symbol. And then on the right side of the paper, put a symbol of the end, a little infinity symbol or something, just to acknowledge that your life has an end. And draw a line. And give yourself a little future with a dotted line. And the line should represent the pattern of your life. The line should represent the pattern of your life. And one of the things, looking at that, it will put your career into context. And these lines end up looking quite different from one another. Some of them loop back on themselves. Some of them look like heart attacks. Some of them look like, I was talking with someone in a Catholic university, and he said his looked like the Stations of the Cross. So you find all kinds of different patterns. But one of the things you find is that the career fits into a larger pattern. And that may be healthy to take a look at. One of the things you have to decide is what you want. The little speech, the little elevator speech, is about what you want. If you ask someone spontaneously in an occasion like an interview, what do you want? Many of us are shy about saying what we really want. And many of us haven't thought through what we really want. And if you haven't done that, not only will you not be scripted, you'll be unprepared to make decisions about what you really want to do. Another little quiz about work life. What about the nature of your work life? How important to you is it that your work life contain the following? Well, we use some of these questions. The reason I've got this up here is we used these questions a couple of years ago in a survey of IEEE members. And this survey was designed, 11 questions, fairly simple, by an Israeli scholar named Itzhak Harpaz. And he's conducted this survey around the world, just about every country you can imagine, and tracked the different priorities of workers in these places. And these change over time because our conditions change over time. Let me just ask you to think about this, and I don't think I'm going to take a vote on all of them, but I'm going to take a vote on the one that you pick out as the highest. And I'll just go through the list, and you pick out the one that you would say is number one for you, and we'll see how it stacks up. A lot of opportunity to learn new things. Good interpersonal relationships with supervisors and co-workers. Good opportunity for upgrading or promotion. Convenient work hours, a lot of variety. Interesting work. That is work you really like. A good job security, a good match between your job requirements and your abilities and experience, good pay, good physical working conditions, a lot of autonomy. Okay, let's just go through the list. A lot of opportunity to learn new things. A few, 4 or 5 people. Good interpersonal relationships. Only a couple. Good opportunity for upgrading or promotion. Value of achievement and success. We have about 3 people here. Convenient work hours. If you just want a job, you're probably not going to ask about the work hours, right? A lot of variety. Almost no one. Interesting work that you really like. Almost everyone. Almost everyone. What you just hit there was the key question around the world. That is what most people answer around the world. Good job security. A good match between the job requirements and your abilities and experience. Few folks, and that probably would lead to some of the other things here. Good pay. Well, I think if we weren't holding these up against one another, most folks would want good pay. A few people here. Good physical working conditions, that would be a kind of a foundation and a lot of autonomy. If you, yeah, there are some folks here who want that, and we're going to be talking this afternoon. Charles Lord's going to be talking about entrepreneurship and working for yourself, and you folks might be. Okay. When we asked how important are each of the following factors for IEEE members, we had, as you can see, more than we had 543 people respond. 72% responded that interesting and challenging work was most significant or extremely important. A lot of opportunity to learn new things. 26% said that was extremely important. Interesting work. 39% said that was extremely important. So I think you're reflecting that we want interesting work, and we want work that where you can learn lots of new things.
I just realized,
You have a thought.
I just realized that.
This is Ed Perkins speaking to my left. Come in.
I just want to make a comment.
Come in. Come in.
Okay, all right.
What's your elevator pitch, by the way?
No, my comment was, it just struck me after 5 years that the problem with people finding jobs is they go after the interesting work, and I was mentioning that to Tarek, and they don't necessarily look at their skills or their branding or their approach to the employer, and they say, I want this interesting work, and they send in their resume, and the employer says, you're not qualified. End of story.
Yeah.
So that's the conundrum.
So you're saying what you're interested in is against how you can add value to the company.
Well, your background may not, you see the interesting work, and you want that.
I think what happens to us is as we contemplate this, and especially as we compare our own careers with other people's, and we begin to feel slight pangs of envy, we say, wouldn't that be interesting to do? Wouldn't it be interesting if I could have buy a couple of horses and do pony rides? But I would be they would die within a couple of weeks because I'm entirely unqualified to deal with pets. We're literally under a cloud, and we are facing financial crisis everywhere, and we sometimes observe that we live in a world of entitlement and division and selfishness. Except I'm not sure that's entirely true. One of the things that we observe when we work with the IEEE network and with other people is that there seems to be a kind of basic human impulse to be helpful. There have been some psychological studies using very small children that indicate that there is a kind of natural impulse, even in infants, to help other people. And so as you begin to network and you begin to look for opportunities, you'll find that you can rely on that overall there are a lot of people who are willing to help and support. Now, there are a lot of different career models. Some of these are in business textbooks, for example, and a while back I was looking at some older business textbooks, and I tried to tease out what they were saying about careers, and what they were saying about careers was you got a job, you got promoted, you have to watch out for plateauing. Well, who among us is going to look at this little thing that looks like Kaizen, continual improvement, this little upward path, and then be afraid of plateauing? That right now is the least of our worries. So these career models don't necessarily apply, although there are now some fairly sophisticated ones, to what we're trying to do. For example, we used to think, as Ed said this morning, that he would get a job and he would have a job for a long time, and if he wanted it, it would be for life. That still exists in the academic world, academic tenure. still exists. But I don't know, and I guess the Supreme Court is the other place. But I don't know where else that pertains. How many different jobs do you expect to have in your career? This is again from the same survey. 9.7% said one. They would have to correlate this a little bit with the other questions to find out if the demographics, to find out if maybe they're near retirement. But folks say 2 or 3, 36%, 4 or 5, 31%. So 31% are fully aware that maybe it's going to be 4 or 5. 6 to 9, 15%. 10 or more, 7.5%. So we have developed a kind of expectation. About 36% of the respondents placed themselves at mid-career, and I suspect that's true of a lot of IEEE members. Now, if you want to think about this, in thinking about career models or career paths or career models, I guess, I have decided that instead of models, we should use metaphors. The metaphor used to be, and this was a very powerful one, and one that I think has affected most people's thinking about career. In fact, I heard the word this morning, or the term, career ladder. How many of you started out your career thinking you had a career ladder? That's changed. This is a picture created by someone in the Orthodox Church. If you can't see this clearly, it is a ladder ascending to heaven, but a lot of folks are being pulled off by little demons to hell. So the idea of a career ladder right now, I think, looks more like this, that might be the ideal state, but we are well, I know you have the material, some of you, and you have the pictures. If you were to pick out a metaphor, some symbol, some picture, what would your career look like? A roller coaster. Tornado. It's going to make you sick, or it's going to carry you away, or take you to Oz maybe if it's a tornado. What else? Sawtooth? Sawtooth, like that. I thought you said Saw-Tooth, which is that awful horror movie. which, you know, that would have been the most extreme metaphor that I. Okay, it looks like that kind of thing. Anything else?
County fair.
County fair. Well, I just put a few here together that you end up. But this is a quotation from a book by William Bridges called Transitions. Bridges talks about what happens to people when they go through a transition, and as they do, usually in the middle of that transition, there is a kind of disorientation or wilderness that they need to go through before they can start again. And his book, I think, from my perspective, is the best book that you can read on life's transition. Simple book, he wrote a long time ago, but it's still, I think, very useful. The image of life for most people is not an upward tending diagonal of increasing achievement, but a spiral of linked cycles. The completion of each leading to a new cycle of experience and activity based on a new dream. That, I think, is probably the best description of what I've heard in talking to people as they do go through work transitions. That spiral symbol is a very powerful one in various religious traditions, Christianity, Islam. This is the spiral mosque at Samara. And of course, the spiral is sort of at the foundation of life. And the career path can also be a spiral. And that, someone said, the roller coaster, there that is. You also can think maybe of the game Chutes and Ladders, which has that, you go up to the top. It's probably been a while since you've played Chutes and Ladders, but maybe you have children or grandchildren who played that. This morning there was a discussion about needing to take responsibility for yourself. And this little slide, which I won't dwell on, deals with the fact that we have what is called a protean career. Proteus was a god of the sea and was able to change shape very rapidly as water flows. And the idea is that a protean career, and this idea was developed in the 1990s, the career is managed by the person, not your organization. And the career is a lifelong series of experiences, skills, learnings, transitions. Development is continuous learning. It's self-directed. It's relational. It's found in work challenges. That model was presented this morning as well. Development isn't necessarily formal training or retraining or upward mobility. It's a shift from know-how to learn how. From job security to employability, from organizational careers to protean careers, and from the work self to the whole self, fitting your career into your whole life as against fitting your life into your career. And you see organizations not necessarily as a place where you can homestead, but a place where you can find challenging assignments, you can develop relationships, and you can get information and other developmental resources. The goal is psychological success. I'm not going to read this all to you, but the first line from Tom Friedman, and this was a column that I was reading just before one of our workshops in spring, and I was struck by this. Friedman says, in today's wired world, the most important economic competition is no longer between companies and countries. The most important economic competition is actually between you and your imagination. It's between you and your imagination. There are a whole variety of ways that suggest, we mentioned LinkedIn earlier. This is from the website, The Freelancer. Have any of you used this? Freelancer, anybody ever use it? I haven't visited it for a while, but it is a website that looks for people looking for work. People who are looking for work can sign up. People who are looking for workers can sign up. And what it essentially does, as it says here, is it's an outsourcing for small business. So a whole lot of these networks have responded to that call for enhanced imagination. Now, this morning we were discussing talents. That's Sanjay Gupta, by the way. Do you know Dr. Gupta on CNN? He can eat fire. Eat fire. He could do a brain operation, or he could eat fire. The Gallup organization The Gallup organization is useful in assisting people who are trying to make career transitions. One of the reasons for that is that Don Clifton, who was the guy who worked out of a university, he developed a system for identifying how you create job fit, and he created a series of interviews that were intended to help organizations choose the best candidates for any job. And my connection with that many years ago was working on fitting teachers, identifying who the best teachers would be, and also on a little bit on the management side as well. Well, Clifton developed this, which I thought was a rather extraordinary system for interviewing people for jobs. And his own company was so successful that eventually he took over the Gallup organization. And he infused the Gallup organization with his own values about how you develop people. And about 8 or 10 years ago, he started to suggest to the American Psychological Association that instead of using psychology only to diagnose illness, that we should use psychology to define happiness and success. And so he wrote a little book about that. And another guy who has researched this rather extensively is a guy named Seligman, who wrote a book some years ago called Learned Optimism, in which well-researched book on the fact that optimistic people tend to be more successful, and that we can be more optimistic. It's not simply a genetic characteristic, that we can learn to behave in certain ways and think in certain ways that help us to be more optimistic. And he created at the University of Pennsylvania a graduate program on positive psychology. And if you want to visit his website, it's called AuthenticHappiness.com. If you like to find out whether you're happy by taking a little quiz on the web, that'll help you do that. AuthenticHappiness.com. And Gallup has an instrument called the Strengths Finder. So if you want to do a kind of self-assessment of where your personal strengths are, so you can start to think about creating an elevator pitch that you'll have something to follow up with. That's a remarkably good source. This particular study, defined a number of talents. One is relating talents that are used effectively. They create, develop, and sustain relationships. Impacting talents, they prompt a person to set a course for individuals and groups to follow, then get them moving along that course, a leadership talent. Striving talent, pushing yourself toward results and motivate a person to get things done, seek greater accomplishments. And thinking talents, direct how people gather, process, make decisions with information and mental images. Important skills. Someone asked a question this morning about skills. For a long time, I've been involved in doing work on human values. And one of the things we find is that people will espouse values that they think are good, things that they would buy into. But they're not going to be very successful just going around espousing values. We all believe about the same things. We all believe that a lot of things are good. And the most important thing is to link up your values with your skills. And when we've thought about skills, we thought about instrumental skills. I mean, if you want to talk about yourself in terms of the skills you've learned as an engineer, or other kinds of instrumental skills that you use to get a job done, that you may espouse a lot of values about work, but you have to be able to illustrate what you've done there. Interpersonal skills. What are your interpersonal skills like? You're going to have to illustrate that in an interview. You're going to have to illustrate that in an elevator speech. So you've got to work on that. You also might want to, particularly in organizations where there is a lot of teamwork, be able to explicate where you've had experience in that area. So instrumental skills, interpersonal skills, skills of imagination. That little blurb by Tom Friedman asks us to extend our imaginations. It's one of the things that I think is extraordinarily important for kids in school, and it's extraordinarily important for leaders. You cannot possibly be a leader unless you cannot possibly envision a career without thinking about how things might be different. So you need an imagination to be able to allow you to do that. And then finally, system skills. You need to be able to see how things fit together in your life and in your workplace, and you should, I think, be able to illustrate that if you're going to sell yourself as a brand, and particularly as an engineer, in your resume and in your interview. Career plan. We've already heard this morning that a career plan follows an arc of challenge, response, adaptation, overcoming, succeeding, and repeating. We need a career plan that is in fact strategic. You have to take into account your environment. Things have changed. You have to recognize that. You have to marshal your skills, and you have to find those areas in which your skills are most saleable. Now we'll talk a little bit about a creative job search, but I think we have a little bit of a technical transition here. Is that correct? And we'll use this slide to make the transition. That's a symbol for change.